The question of why sometimes when you run a GameMaker game and your sprites come out looking all blurry like this, even though they don't look blurry at all in, for example, the GameMaker sprite editor or in the GameMaker room editor, is probably the single most common question that I see from new GameMaker users in the past 2 or so years. So, because I assume that if you clicked on this video, you're having this problem and you're kind of annoyed at GameMaker for having this problem and you just want answers, let's go into the answer first and explain later. So, if you've already got a project that you've already created, the easiest way to turn off this effect is going to be to go into Game Options over here on the side under Quick Access, and you can click on, if you're on Windows, if you're running this on Linux or Mac, you can click the Linux, Ubuntu, or Mac settings options on the side over here. You go into the graphics tab in your platform options, and you uncheck this box that says interpolate colors between pixels, and you click OK, apply the settings. If you run your game now, your game by default will no longer have those blurry pixels, and it will use crisp pixel nearest neighbor scaling like this. That's probably the easiest solution that most of you are going to want to use if you're making a pixel art game, but all your sprites are coming out looking like somebody hit them with a truck. It is also possible, and I'm going to go back into graphics and I'm going to turn that setting back on. It is also possible to go and modify this setting through code at runtime whenever you want. And you can do that by calling and I'm going to go into the, let's say, the player object. If I go into the player object's create event, and if I call the function GPU set text filter and I set this to false, this will have the same effect as hitting that checkbox in the settings menu. So the GPU set text filter function is the direct analog in code to that function in settings. And you know what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to go into the step event. And let's say if keyboard check VK enter, we can GPU set text filter and set that to false. And if you really wanted to, we could keyboard check VK spacebar, and we could set this to true. And this will allow us to turn the setting on or off at runtime during the game while the game is running. This might seem kind of useless, but there are times when you are making, for example, a pixel art game. If you're making a high-definition user interface, it might be helpful to turn off texture interpolation or texture filtering when you draw the main stuff in your game, so the sprites, the backgrounds, the tiles, that sort of thing. But turn on texture filtering when you're drawing user interface elements. And there's a couple of other situations in which you might want to do this. Cases where you might want to have texture filtering on and off at different times. So if you want to be able to set this setting through code, then you can do that. The third way that you can affect this setting is actually when you create a new project, and this is something that I think probably 80% of people who are going to create a new project in GameMaker are going to want. But when you create a new project in GameMaker, these two templates down here, blank game and blank pixel game, if you select blank pixel game, it will default to the setting off. And if you select just blank game, it will default to the setting on. That is literally the only difference between these two presets down here when you create your game, although as I say that, when I'm clicking between them, I do notice that when you select blank pixel game, it also allows you to select like GML code or GML visual as your scripting language, so I'm not entirely sure what that's about. So on a technical level, it's probably worth going into exactly how this problem happens. So texture filtering affects how sprites are displayed and how textures are sampled in shader terms when you are not precisely drawing a sprite to a 1-to-1 ratio with the pixel grid of whatever you're drawing to. And that is a lot of words. That means that if in this sample project, for example, I have a viewport which is a I want to say 360 by 180 window on the screen. But I am scaling that up to a actual window on my monitor that is 1366 by 768. If I were to change that viewport setting to a 1-to-1, so that the window on in the game world that we're viewing is 1-to-1 with the size of the window on the screen, then we would not actually see any aliasing here. We would see our sprites being drawn to a precise 1-to-1 ratio with no texture filtering or anything like that, and it looks fine now. However, the instant I introduce any scaling, whether that is actually doing anything like zooming in with the in-game camera using the GameMaker camera functions, or zooming in using the viewport settings in the GameMaker room editor. Even though we are now scaling up the game window to match the screen to an exact 2-to-1 ratio, we're still getting some of those interpolation artifacts around the edges of sprites. Or if I were to not do this, and if I were to introduce any rotation, let's see, how about when I go draw my player object, let's say draw the sprite rotated to a, for example, 60-degree angle. Instead of 0 degrees, no rotation. Then you would also start to see some aliasing artifacts when you run your game like this. This looks like so weird, and like my brain is like having a hard time figuring out suddenly which keys on my keyboard I should hit if I want to go up, down, left, and right when my character is rotated at 60 degrees. Anyway, the general rule of thumb when you're making pixel art games is to actually create a camera viewport that is smaller than the actual size of the game window so that you don't have to, like, deal with subpixels in weird and annoying ways. So, if you have the texture interpolation setting turned on, it is extremely common to run into that kind of problem. Like, the instant you do any kind of viewport zoom or scaling or rotation, that's going to happen. So, that's the slightly more technical explanation. Now, GameMaker, I know that you sometimes watch these videos, and we really have to do better with this. Like, at the bare minimum, the icon that's on the blank pixel game template down here is absolutely not helping. And I really wish that this isn't a video that I had to make. Like, I would rather spend my time making videos on other things, but this is by far the most common single problem that I've seen coming up on the GameMaker subreddit and on the Discord and on the GameMaker forums and pretty much all the other GameMaker social environments on the internet. And it would be really great if this could just, like, stop being a problem that the community had to constantly, like, answer questions about because of a single, like, badly communicated setting on the GameMaker start page. Anyway, my name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games. I like to make videos on all kinds of stuff you can do in GameMaker. Usually those videos have more to do with, like, things that you can actually do with GameMaker instead of actual, like, problems with GameMaker. So if you're interested in anything like that, feel free to subscribe. I have a Patreon, so if you'd like to contribute to the channel, links to that can be found in all the usual places. And if you felt like pledging, I definitely would appreciate it. I hope this video solved your problem, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Zenjamin, Zach Robinson, Squarecrow, Spy Games, Pixelated Pope, Paradox, Nykotic, Manta Ray, GameMaker, GameArt Indie, Edward Holt, DJ Gibbles, Bokeh Dev, and Argo the Knot for supporting these videos. If you want to join their ranks and contribute to the channel, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.